Now, Sir Keir Starmer has reportedly killed off the Rwanda deportation plan on the first day of his premiership. The Rwanda proposal is now effectively dead, a bit like the parrot in Monty Python, after the party pledged to kill the plans if they won the election. This is despite the new government setting illegal migration as one of their key priorities. Let's see what my marvellous panel make of this. Who's still having group hugs in the studio? Yeah, stop it. Put each other down. James, it's like, OK, they're going to... I mean, Yvette Cooper, she's got a big job on her hands as the new Home Secretary, isn't she? It's like, crack down on those criminal gangs. Has she said how yet?
Not really. Like most things, they've stood next to the government and said, well, they're rubbish, don't vote for them, and then they come in, now they have to deal with it. Of course, killing off... It's weird phrasing, but whatever.
I didn't write
ending,
it, by the way.
No. That's, ending the Rwanda plan, which had never actually started, is a perfectly sensible...
Rishi Sunak didn't believe in it when it was shot.
Yes, the Rwanda plan was... I mean, maybe some people thought it would work, but it was never actually going to work. So it's a red herring. If you want to talk about migration, you should be talking about what are the rules in which people can come in and how, and what are those conditions, and how do those get set, and how is there democratic accountability over them. What instead both parties have done is demonise the most vulnerable as a distraction away from not wanting to talk about other issues, which might be falling living standards, it might be failures in all sorts of things which fundamentally take change. They require money and they require changes to the structures of our society and our economy. So it's almost a non-story that they've scrapped the Rwanda plan, because it wasn't going to happen in the first place. Now the questions should be, how much are they going to focus on this issue, and are they going to talk about it in a way which is humane, or are they going to talk about it in a way which drives politics away from where they would like it to be?
Do you agree, Henry? Do you think migrants have been demonised? You know,
I mean, to an extent, in some quarters of the press, but it is a real problem. And also, Starmer tried to run to the right of Rishi Sunak on migration. I remember in the debate when he accused Rishi Sunak of being the most liberal prime minister on immigration we've ever had. So, Labour is, like it or not, quite vulnerable on this, because again, there's all those seats where reform came second, where if Labour comprehensively fail on migration. Now, Rwanda. The reason that Rishi Sunak ended up talking about Rwanda is because he needed to buy off Suella Braverman in the leadership contest. And the other reason is because he knew he needed to talk about immigration in the election, but he didn't want to talk about legal migration because that's tripled under the Tories, and dealing with that would involve showdowns with big business and the university sector, which he didn't want. So he just focused on Rwanda. The scheme itself, there was a world in which it might have worked, but it was a world in which the Tories started doing it in 2019, early 2020. It was a 5-year, having spoken to the people who designed it, it was a 5-year project. It was never going to work if you started it in 2022. But what's Labour going to do? They've talked about clearing the backlog, but the only thing that we can do on our own to clear the backlog is just let people through, which I suspect is what they're going to start doing. They'll just start rubber stamping applications. There's nothing about making it easier to return people, and there's nothing about interceptions in France or in other places to stop people coming here. So it's a very, very difficult problem, but there is absolutely no evidence that Labour is going to get a grip on it. And I suspect if they also don't do anything about the high levels of legal migration we have, they will pay a price for that in 2029.
James, do you think that, to clear the backlog, that's what Labour are going to do? They're going to rubber stamp people that are, the backlog we have, £7 million on hotels, etc., to house them. Do you think they will just sort of like, OK, we're rubber stamp, you can stay? Do you think that's going to be a thing?
I think they need to put more resources into processing the cases. That's very clearly been the case. If you look at the figures from 2014, where almost every case was processed in 6 months, and now almost no cases are processed in 6 months. So clearly resources need to be there. I just want to say one thing about, you said Reformer in second place in a bunch of Labour seats. But also, Labour have tried to do this sort of talk tough, dog whistling type politics that then with no policies behind it. So in the election campaign, Keir Starmer and Jonathan Ashworth came out and they singled out Bangladeshis. And that's why Jonathan Ashworth lost his seat. He lost his seat by 1,000 votes to an independent
in Gaza.
An independent in Leicester South, in part because of the anger of the Bengali community at being singled out and demonised for a problem which is nothing to do with them. So I think there is a lot of pressure, or there should be a lot of pressure, on Labour's other flank, if you like, from Greens, from Independents, from Left, etc., who say, we don't want this type of demonising language, and we don't want this type of politics which engages in performative cruelty.
Now, if they do get the amount of civil servants needed to process the applications of the people that are still here on this huge backlog, but some of them fail, and some of them obviously will, won't they, Henry? What do we do with them?
Well, I mean, that's the problem.
Where do we send them?
So there's all kinds of reasons. Resourcing is part of it, but there are other reasons why they take longer than 2014, which is there are now so many grounds on which you can appeal. For example, Theresa May introduced the modern slavery legislation, which literally any applicant can file a modern slavery claim. That delays their claim by 2 years. But the other problem is, what do you do when you have failed them and the other country won't take them back? Because all of these people destroy their passports or get rid of their passports. It's actually incredibly easy to send people back anywhere if they have their paperwork. And the best case I ever heard for Rwanda was that because you would automatically be sent to Rwanda, and if you wanted to leave at the end of it, you'd probably want to have a passport, it would stop people throwing their passports overseas.
Right, OK, yeah.
So you need to have more deals like we have with Albania, bilateral deals, but also, if you really want to crack down on it, you're going to have to look at some of the legal architecture that's currently in place around how people can appeal. Because if you don't streamline that, no amount of money is going to get people who fail out.
So, but what are we meant to do with them, James? I mean, the ones that fail, where are we meant to send them? What are we meant to do with them? Well, if they haven't got any papers, back to France? Are the French going to be happy with that?
So if someone, I mean, as Henry says, if someone is failed, then they should be returned to their country, which is why you want to strike deals.
We don't know that country.
Which is why you want to strike bilateral deals with other countries. If someone is failed, they will be assigned. The Home Office will think that that person is from a particular country. You know, let's say somebody says they're from country A, and the Home Office says, actually, no, we don't think you're from country A. That's why we're not giving you the refugee status. We think you're from country B. Well, then that's the country in which they should seek to resettle that person.
But that's not.
But if they don't have the paperwork, that country probably won't accept them. That's the problem. I've spoken to people in the Home Office. You can send people back to almost any country on earth as long as you can prove that they're that country's citizen. But understandably, many of those countries, if we just rock up with someone and be like, we think he's one of yours, they're not interested.
It's a dilemma, isn't it, for everybody? OK, well, we've run out of time, gosh. Right, we're trying to solve the problems of the world here.